Well, Adam Schefter broke today that that guy that you're a huge fan of got fired. What's his name? Callahan?
Brian Callahan. So, for all I don't know, we're gonna start something new here. We're gonna do a segment called Coaching Autopsy, where every time a coach gets fired, we're gonna look at their tenure, the history of it, what went right, what went wrong, the highs and the lows. And
This is the War Room presented by the Sideline Journal, where the film doesn't lie. Let's get to work.
and for Brian Callahan, he never should have been hired to begin with. He's from the Zach Taylor tree. Only reason that Zach Taylor still has a job is because of Joe Burrow. There were a lot of loud rumblings that he's going to get fired until that magical year in 2021 happened where they made their run to the championship game. And so Brian Callahan is Zach Taylor's OC. Well, Zach Taylor never called plays till he was a head coach. Brian Callahan has never called plays in this league until he became a head coach for the Titans in 2023 when he was hired. They do this after firing a top five head coach in Mike Vrabel for not winning enough games after the GM that had previously been with Vrabel traded away all of his good players. They then fired that GM, hired a new GM that hired Brian Callahan. After year one of 3-14 in the Brian Callahan era, that GM is fired, a new GM is hired, they don't fire Callahan, they draft a new number one overall pick, and it's like Urban Meyer all over again. You waste the number one overall picks rookie year, and now they again are going to fire the head coach, and you're starting the chain that's been there since a very long time till the Mike Vrabel era of where a GM and a coach isn't lined up.
Yeah, sound kind of like what the Bears have with their GM coach quarterback carousel. I just don't understand it. Could you imagine what Cam Ward could be doing right now if he has AJ Brown and Derrick Henry? Wouldn't that be so wild? What happened? Why would they get rid of it? That is just an ultimate running back to wide receiver combo. You have a strong physical, fast, 50-50 ball getter and just overall a very talented wide receiver. He's not, the best. He's not like the greatest route runner like JJ or Jamar, but he's just a guy that would be dominant on any side of the field. Then you have like the runner with Derrick Henry and they got rid of him. I mean, why Mike Vrabel was obviously a great coach, and then you trade away two, not Hall of Fame. Derrick Henry, I think, could be Hall of Fame. AJ Brown, I don't think so, but um, two very good, uh, All-Pro players, and then you just don't win as many games, and then the GM's like, "What the heck? See ya, Vrabel. Definitely, you're the fault." That's just mismanagement on the ownership level. Um, yeah, good for the Titans to get rid of Brian Callahan.
Yeah, it's about time that any of it happens. I mean, there was nothing positive with the Brian Callahan era. I mean, immediately when he got there, they did the dumbest thing you can possibly do. They went on a spending spree in free agency. They went and gave a 30-year-old Calvin Ridley $31 million a year, and he's done
Yeah.
nothing since being there. They went and traded for L'Jarius Sneed when they're supposed to be rebuilding to the Chiefs. He's a 29-year-old corner. They paid him as the highest corner in the league. Since he's been there, he's done nothing. They had Harold Landry and Bud Dupree on massive contracts they waited to cut, where they ate the cap hit for them. They went and signed Tony Pollard to a massive free agency contract when they didn't have an O-line to begin with. They look at Will Levis and say, hey, your number one wideout is going to be a 30-year-old Calvin Ridley who is going to lead the league in drops, and Traylon Burks,
Yeah.
who had conditioning issues. And Brian Callahan had never had game time decision making. He had never hired a staff before. He didn't understand clock management. He had never called plays before. And Will Levis, who did show some flashes his first time starting with Mike Vrabel, turns into the most goofiest, chaotic, wild quarterback to ever start. And yes, part of it's Will Levis, but the majority of it lays at the feet on Brian Callahan. Because then we go watch Cam Ward this season, and we see the flashes. You made a statement in week one. He's like Will Levis because it works. Well, I'm sitting here in my crawl like, no, that's the Brian Callahan way of trying to coach a quarterback in the league. I mean, hire an offensive play caller, you have an OC on your staff that's never called plays, and then you go and take play calling away from yourself and give it to the quarterback's coach. This was bound to happen. I'm just glad they did it this early because maybe Cam Ward's rookie year and career can still be salvaged. And the sooner the Titans can get away from the Brian Callahan era, the better.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Cam Ward looks a couple steps above what we thought he'd be at to begin with. So I'm really glad the start of his career and the trajectory long term of like just the Titans pretty much in general too in Nashville. The trajectory has just gone up a lot more with Brian Callahan not being there now short term with the interim coach and it already being like week 7. The rest of the year, I don't see a whole lot of good stuff happening. I mean, next week they have the Patriots, then they got the Colts, Chargers. So that is an insane three run spree right there, going against the number 1, the number 4, and then the up and coming Patriots. So it's just gonna be really tough. Like I don't, they're blaming the coach, saying he's the problem, and it's gonna be a tough end of the year. The only game I'm seeing that they might be competitive in is the Browns or the Saints. And if the 49ers keep on getting guys injured, maybe they can pull that one off too. So I really only see 3 possible wins. I know it's any given Sunday, but right now it's just not looking too good for them. So, but long term, I think that it's looking up for the Titans. They got a great young wide receiver core, Elite Io Manor. He's been looking pretty solid. Defense isn't terrible. I mean, yeah, they've let up some points against the Colts, but the Colts are the number 1 team. Texans put up 26, but then again, they had the ball way many more times than the Titans, and so.
And it's hard for the Titans defense to be any good when they're on the field a disproportionate amount of
Yeah,
times. The offense can't move it. So
that's what I was trying to get to, because one of my points in the offseason was looking at that year, the defense had a lot of negative stats towards them regarding scoring. But the thing I thought was like, all right, let's look at where the defense started their possession each time, because Will Levis was turning the ball over, the interceptions, whatever. So like they were getting the ball within their own 40 every time. So a field goal is going to happen. So that's why like scoring per drive was so high for them. But defense isn't bad. They definitely got a lot to look up to. They're still Mason, just for fun, who do you think's further away from playoff contention, Titans or Saints now? Who do you think is closer to playoff contention in the future, Saints or Titans?
the Saints, and the reason I'm going to say that is the Saints started their rebuild early enough to where finally they're going to get out of cap hell this offseason and they're going to actually be able to build it right. The Titans, they got to rip this thing down from the studs. Yeah, they've got J.C. Latham, who might be an average tackle, young rookie
Yeah,
tackle. If
yeah,
Cam Ward can develop to be the franchise QB, you might have that. Alec Manor might be, I don't think he's the number 1 wideout, but he could maybe develop into being a starting wideout. Defensively, it's what the Browns are dealing with. You've got a good to mid-tier defense, but the majority of your players are on the wrong side of 30 and on very expensive
yeah,
contracts, right dab smack in the middle of their prime. Like if they today I was made the GM of the Charger or the GM of the Titans. I'm trying to trade Jeffrey Simmons for a first round pick. I'm trying to trade L'Jarius Sneed for what I can get. I'm trying to lose every
sure.
game possible and try to rebuild it back because they've got to get out of it. Because for as bad as they are, their salary cap situation is horrific. It is nightmarish. And I think it's
Yeah,
going to take a couple off seasons of where they're going to have to give a head coach a 4 or 5 year contract. They're going to have to pick which side of the ball they're going to make good and then turn their attention to the other side. Because I just think it's been too much mismanagement in the ownership since Mike Vrabel. And I don't know how, hopefully, the job stays desirable because of Cam Ward. Outside of that,
yeah.
this is not a good job.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up. I don't want to beat this dead horse any longer, but like, yeah, this is not an attractive job at all. It looks like it's going to be incredibly messy at the start, and then you're just going to have some terrible couple years throughout it. But like you said, Cam Ward looks like the shining light. Because I mean, look at for the offense just there. Talk about veterans and guys on expensive contracts to be this mature in the league. You got Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. You got Calvin Ridley, and then you got Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson. All right. Tight end Okonokowa. I
Con,
I
yeah,
definitely
Conquo.
mispronounced that,
Yeah.
but He's not bad, but just not very probably attractive to have at your tight end position. You said J.C. Latham looks promising. I think so too. That's very nice. Build around him and Cam Ward, in my opinion. Those are the two guys I'd really want to stick around. And then Elik Ayo Manor, who is their second on the depth chart. And then defense, yeah, I really agree with you. Try to get whatever you can out of Snead. Jeffrey Simmons is pretty good, but then again, he's just he's a defensive lineman. We can replace him later. Um, Xavier Woods is pretty good, but like you said, I think it's got to be messy with the what you do this first week. It's not going to be pretty, is what I think we're trying to say. It's not going to be super attractive. So just got to get through this part, start building with Cam Ward. That's very nice to say, with a good start at the O line, and then give it 2 years. Have a good free agency in 2 years. Once you establish a culture with the head coach, the Titans can be back. But we'll see if they even do that, Mason. You got anything else?
Yeah, I think I'm going to throw a name in the ring here that no one's going to connect because everyone thinks offensive coach when you think rookie quarterback. But the Titans,
No.
historically, when they've been good, they've had a defensive head coach, and they need a culture builder. They need someone to come in and take a culture of losing and turn it to a culture of winning. I look at this DC that's with the Vikings. It's made a dog's breakfast
Ooh.
personnel-wise into a 14-3 masterclass team. He made the Dolphins with horrible quarterback play into a 7-8-9 win team. I'm calling my shot now. If the Titans do this right, this time next year, Brian Flores will be the head coach of the Titans.
I like that call because I think Brian Flores is just eating in Minnesota, and then I thought he got rudely kicked out of Miami. But that is a great call, Mason, and I think it'd be in their best interest to do that.
If you enjoyed this segment, consider checking out the full War Room podcast. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Every week we do a podcast of various topics around the league, and this one we talked about Brian Callahan, the coaching autopsy. We gave you a recap of the week. We broke down some film. We had a head of predictions of next week. We talk about the MVP ladder. We talk about what's going on down in Steel City now. The Steelers are actually AFC favorites. We talk about all this and more every week on the War Room podcast. Anyways, drop your thoughts down below. What do you think about the Titans and their future rebuild? We'd love to hear from you. Or if you disagree with the take that we have, let us know down in the comments below.